Good evening, councillors. Thank you for attending this Leisure Services Committee on Tuesday, this 16th of January, cold winter's evening. Where's the bit I have to read out? There is a fire alarm this evening. It will not be a planned fire alarm, it will be an actual fire alarm. And you should follow the fire exit sign out of the building under the Shepherd's two parts here. So that will be the rules for this evening. Sorry, I haven't got a proper card to read out. Thank you for it. Can I have item one on the agenda, which is please?
No apologies.
No apologies.
Everyone's here.
Thank you very much. I'll take item 2 on the agenda then, which is declarations of interest. They really counts this. Okay. Then I will take item 3 on the agenda, which is the minutes of the last meeting held on the 7th of November. And those minutes have been signed during the record already.
They haven't been signed already. They were presented to that.
Well, they presented to full council. Okay. Anyone got any comments from those meetings from item 3 on the agenda? I have a proposal, please. Is it all those in favour of approval, please show by their hands. All those against? Minutes have been passed. Very much. I will then take item 4 on the agenda, which are the actions of follow-ups, which are reported on page 5. I think you go through these on there.
Yeah, I think in this time, I think everything on there is pretty self-explanatory. Most of those actions and tasks on there have been completed on pages 5 and 6, and everything else I think has relevant updates. But does anyone have any questions on those?
Okay, then I will notice those and move on to the next item, which is item 5, which is budgetary control on page 7. Kevin.
Thank you. So just some items to note on the budgetary control under expenditure. You'll see that horticultural supplies over where we might expect them to be. That's item 4 earlier in the year. There might be any further spending there, so that is where we'd expect. Staff costs are over. There's some staffing costs in the year, partly due to the national pay package that was introduced earlier in the year across public services, and allotment costs are over, which was due to an increase in the lease agreement amount which comes through renewal in the year, and some additional maintenance that was carried out. In terms of income, not much to report there other than good and remaining strong at the leisure centre, particularly, which you can see there. There is some income associated with that, which was to do with the VAT rebate from HMRC in relation to VAT charges in last year, and actually the 3 preceding years as well. So, any questions?
Thank you. Yes, Michael.
Chairman, at the risk of making myself an absolute idiot, but on page 7, the cricket and bowling green figures are identical. Is that coincidental, or is it?
It's essentially it's split in half, so the same materials are used for both, so the percentages tends to be the amount of the same.
What? Anybody else? Any other guys on?
Sorry,
Yes, please. Okay.
the allotments, do they not all come in January?
Most do. There might be a bit of a delay on that. This is to the end of December.
Sorry.
Yeah, I think this is moving behind slightly. You have had most of them in, so I think that's
brilliant.
actually higher than that.
Yeah.
Any other comments, Kester?
There's just one, just under the new services on 0, but nothing spent at all.
No, that's right. The budget, the revenue budget for that was moved into an earmark reserve for grants for organisations supporting young people. So that budget has nothing in it at the moment because it's sat in the earmark reserve for youth grants.
Okay, then I will note the budget control report on page 7 and go to item 6, which is the Woodford Partners and Service Support and Development and Activities report on page 9. Ed.
Good evening, everybody. So the Gym on the Park, as you can imagine, this is a pretty busy time of the year for memberships, although, of course, this report was written before we kind of got to the real busy part of January. Through the period, the 1st of August to 9th of January, we welcomed 68 new members, and in the same time, we actually only lost 30, which really surprising, actually, one of the smallest amounts we've lost in one of these reports. You can see the reasons given there. A lot of those members actually cancelled just before Christmas, which makes it really difficult to get hold of them. No one wants to answer the phone to us, which is why you'll see that none given was the biggest reason we couldn't get hold of people. Other than that, not too much interesting in there. The one person that moved to another gym was because they wanted a swimming pool. So not sure about that either. The monthly membership income is in there. That graph does actually show December, even if it's off the axis at the bottom. Again, you can see it's pretty consistent. And when we come to April, you'll likely see some change in that graph. Through the last 7 days, that isn't displayed in here. We have actually taken an extra 42 new memberships as well. So it's been pretty busy. That's in just a week, and every day we seem to be, pretty much what we've been doing.
Do you know why that's occurred? Has there been something happening?
Well, we have our annual offer on that we was put on in January, which we call Feel Good membership. It tends to do really well every January. This is the 3rd year we've rolled it over. And also there was another local gym's closed down, so we have had some members come in from there as well. We do try and ask people why they join, but their reasons are so varied, to be honest. And most of the time it's to lose weight or get fitter. It's kind of why you join the gym anyway. So, but that, usually I aim for 100 new members in January, but I think we'll probably go past that this time around. So everything positive there. Linked into the gym, so our gym refurbishment prior to Christmas went well. Some minor hiccups as we kind of expected, but generally speaking, gym was closed for a week with only a couple of members coming in to try things out on our request because we wanted some feedback. So that included new equipment going and coming in, as well as a deep clean, repainting, some additional lighting, some fixing things that we couldn't do whilst other kit was in there. Generally, that's been received really well, and feedback's been positive. Moving over to the leisure centre, so the family racket stack promotion that we run every school holiday over Christmas was really popular as well. The school holiday this time around actually meant that the children in the area had a week off prior to Christmas, so they had a lot of time to come in. As you can see there, 301 individual transactions, mostly badminton, but a little bit of table tennis and tennis as well. Again, really popular, and we'll of course do that in February and Easter and continue that until such a time as it's not popular. We had to replace a tennis net. That was from the storms a week and a half ago. Basically, it got completely ripped, and so we had to buy a new one. We were able to get that from the next day because we did have some bookings in as well, which was really good, and that was back operational again for the weekend. We also came back from Christmas, and our defibrillator battery was telling us it was running out, so we had to go and look at how much one of those was, which did surprise me, but we had to spend £275 to get a new one. It wasn't really something we could afford not to have. They last 7 years, so you can choose to get a 5-year one, but it's exactly. So we purchased one of those, and that's now back operational. We do actually have 2 fibs on site anyway, and I would assume that it would still work given that it was telling us it was running out. So I think you get a bit of time, but we have asked if we can recharge the old one somehow, but I don't think that's going to be
Lots of safety.
exactly. We were thinking maybe we could send it back and they'd be able to, but no. So that's back operational as well. And the last item on my report is about cricket. So this is probably a bit longer to explain, but I'll do my best. Basically, Woodley Cricket Club play their home cricket fixtures at the Leisure Centre and have done for a long time. And they play in the Berkshire Cricket League in one of their many divisions at a certain level. And the league have basically highlighted to the club that the facilities at the Woodley Leisure Centre are no longer going to be suitable for them moving forward. I've bulleted there what those the main issues are. There's a big checklist that the league has as they go around to all their clubs. And it ranges from things such as a tea room available to the quality of the wicket, changing rooms, everything. And in particular, the things at the leisure centre that don't meet the requirements are the showers, and in particular not being separate showers available for umpires and both teams, so 3 separate sets of showers. Ideally, they'd also like them to be cubicled as well. The toilets and changing facilities not being available for the duration of matches because the leisure centre closes at 6 on a Saturday, and the general quality of the changing facilities. Now, the league have highlighted, suggested, I suppose I should say, that they'll allow Woodley to play for this upcoming season in 2024, and continuing the way they've been playing for the last 2-3 years. But from 2025, they would probably have to find a new facility unless things improve drastically during that time. I've made a couple of notes at the bottom here. For example, the condition of those facilities has been identified as an area needing improvement by the Woodford Park Leisure Centre Development Task and Finish Group. And little things like, for example, that open the facility after 6 p.m, there's financial implications that would need to be considered, which is why we don't mostly. And that you could consider increasing the charge for cricket, but then there's a good chance that the club wouldn't be able to afford that anyway. And the very last paragraph there, just again for your information, really, how much income we generate from Saturday cricket, what the current charge is. And at this point, really, this is more for your information because I can see this kind of developing over the next kind of 6 to 12 months, depending on what the working group, how that progresses, I suppose.
Thanks, Ray.
No problem.
Okay, does any member wish to ask a question? Carol?
Yes, can I just ask, I'm surprised, not surprised we're closed after 6 p.m, but we don't have any bookings after 6 p.m. Is that right?
Yeah, so we used to, pre-COVID, there used to be functions and things like that. What COVID kind of resulted in was those function bookings really kind of coming over to the Oakwood Centre and Coronation Hall, and we focused more on sports and leisure, really. So very, very rarely do we have any bookings past 6 p.m. on a Saturday. So that's when the gym closes, the sports hall closes, the 3G pitch closes, and basically the centre shuts down.
Another councillor?
Can I
Yes, one.
just ask Ed, you say, Ed, that the income generated from cricket is 2,600?
From Saturday grass
Oh,
cricket, yeah.
So do you have matches on Sundays?
We do, yeah.
Which explains why the budget is 5,900.
Yeah, I've got a little breakdown here. So I think for this current financial year, we're predicting about 7,500 income from cricket. The breakdown for that is 4,300 for grass, and that's split between Saturdays and Sundays roughly equally.
Yeah.
The artificial wicket generates 2,690, which is also in that budget code. And then there's a couple of events that might go into that as well, but that's minimal.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
Any other councillor? Okay, then I will like to note item 6, the report page 9. Thank you very much. And take item 7, which is parks and buildings. Thank you. Oh, no, sorry, Kevin.
Yes, thank you very much. So Woodford Park Leisure Centre, installation works for the new heating system are that's scheduled to start in the next few weeks. That's booked out for February, and Ed has managed bookings around that in such a way that the work can be phased to allow part of the sports hall to continue being used while that work's being carried out. The gym, Ed covered in his report. Woodford Park itself, the amenities manager is looking at some long-standing issues we've had with drainage down towards the preschool area there on the driveway coming up to the leisure centre. When we've had periods of very heavy rain, as we've had over the last few weeks, it's always been a problem. The old clay pipes long since collapsed, and in certain sections we think we're going to be able to fix it just by rerouting new pipe work into the surface water sewer there, but there's a bit of work being investigated there to make that better. We did lose a tree over towards the back of House to Close in the strong winds a little over a week ago. And that was dealt with very quickly by the amenities team, including reinstating the residence fence panels, which had come down as part of that. We also had a more significant tree come down, so it was mentioned a bit later on, but I'll mention now, at the allotment site, which was a significant one. And Reading Borough Council had to close the road off and get somebody in to take it down. We had the rest of the trees in that area inspected that week, and there are 2 other trees there of concern, not immediate danger, but actually going to need to come down. The ground there is the particularly wet end of the allotment site. They're older trees, very large, they're close to the residences, and also, yeah, very close to the road. So we'll have a couple of trees there that will need to in the coming weeks. Moving on to allotments, there's currently 62 prospective tenants on the waiting list. That number's been kind of steady, although this is there's a bit of a churn this time of year as people who don't pay their bill, don't want to renew, don't, and we're able to turn a lot of those around. Tenant letters went out in December with the rent renewals. We have received some comments back regarding the intention to prohibit bonfires from January 2025. We're keeping a record of those and those conversations and suggestions about other ways to do it. And we'll be feeding those into the conversations we have with the tenants committee during this year. I'm trying to arrange that first meeting to have a good conversation with the committee about that. That's it, I think.
Thank you, Kevin. So, item 7 then, to receive that report. Received.
So questions there.
Any questions? Yes.
Well, not really a question, it's just a comment to make, what the town clerk just said about Reading Road and the trees. I was alerted to that by a resident, and Woking Borough Council were up there on the same day. And I do know, so I did have a look at it, and I couldn't drive down there, so I was being a bit nosy. But I'm grateful to Woking Borough and Woodley Town Council for that, because it's pretty quick response.
Yeah, thank
But
you.
it would have been nice to get a thank you from the resident. I did. Because I thought it was yeah. Well, it's causing a very busy road. It's causing, there have been lots of issues along that road, but that was one that could easily be sorted. But I know about these, the tree problem at the allotment, so there's a lot around there. So it will be sorted.
Okay, thank you. Carol.
Yes, the waiting list for the allotments. The 5-hole plot next to me has been in use for 30 years now. I'm battling the weeds, something coming over my not weed-free allotment. And I just wondered how much, I know the committee look at plots that aren't being used, but just wondered if there's a bit of a gap in the communication.
There has been an issue in this year with plot allocations, and the committee are trying to get to the bottom of that. I think they've had some issues within the committee, which has made it a bit more difficult. So I'm hoping that will be better.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll then move on to item 8, which are considered proposed charges for 24/25 on page 12. Kevin.
Thank you. So the proposed charges for the legislature and associated sports activities and for the community halls and other services that fall under leisure services are contained in the budget appendix. You have got a reissued budget appendix which was sent out electronically by Matt, and you've got a hard copy of it there. That was due to an omission in relation to memorial benches and a minor change in the revised budget in relation to those. The charges have been proposed in the context of both changes to the VAT on sports facilities and the increased cost in service delivery that we're facing this year and next year. I think we take them in chunks. Ed, do you want to say a bit about your ones first, and then we move on to
So page 2 is the room hire charges for the leisure centre. As you can see, they have been pretty consistent, proposing increasing those by anywhere between 6.8 and 7.8%. Generally speaking, these all link together. The function room, for those that don't know, is the games room and tea room combined, which is why for a Woodley resident it's £15, and then the Woodley resident for the function room is £30, just because it's double the room, so double the price. The indoor sports activities on page 3, you'll notice the percentages are lower. That links into the fact that we were able to reclaim that VAT for the sports facilities. So the sports facilities generally have been increased by lower percentages. As you can see as well, I also do pre-Christmas. I always go around to local facilities, go on websites, try and find comparable charges. That is proving more difficult as the years go by, as more centres start to either hide their fees or have different kind of, how do I put this? Some of them hide their member fees, some of them have public fees, some of them have different types of membership. For example, I always go to the sports park or Reading Uni. They have 4 different types of charges for 4 different types of membership based on students, staff, you know, and it goes on and on anyway. So I've tried my best to apply comparable charges across the board when setting my recommended charges for sports facilities. So all of those there, badminton, netball, table tennis, sports, as you can see, they're a bit lower than the room charges, but still an increase. Healthy habits, the membership right at the bottom there, I've frozen, and we've frozen that for a while now. That was something I think that this committee actually agreed a few years ago, and actually, do you know, that it works quite well, and there's no need to increase those particularly. Moving on to the last page, which is outdoor sports on page 4, you can see again, quite comparably, they're lower than the percentage increases for room hire. This is the first time, if you look at football per match, the 3rd box down, this is the first time I've recommended increasing football charges, I think in 10 years actually. But I think it's about time, because the cost of materials keeps going up and the cost of staff keeps going up, and we are popular as well for that. So yeah, if anyone has any questions, feel free to.
Michael's.
Sorry, Chairman. Is there a reason why I can't find charge for gym membership anywhere?
So gym membership is something this committee has historically ever looked at, but it is going to stay the same. I haven't increased gym membership monthly charges since we went to the gym, and it will stay the same as well.
Sorry, are you done?
Yes. Any more questions on this charges to add?
So from
Kevin.
moving on to the charge for community halls. These rates have been modified slightly in order that the rates for Woodley residents and charities are calculated as a percentage from a standard non-Woodley rate, rather than having a percentage increases applied across individual rates, which has kind of happened in the past, and there's been a bit of drift on them. That will give a bit of consistency in the way that we, that's the way we're doing with the open centre charges, and also with the allotments, so that there's a standard rate and you get a discount off that if you're a resident or charity. In calculating that, it basically just worked out what the existing discount rate was, which was in the region of 35% for Woodley resident and 58% for a charity from the non-Woodley rate. And those discount rates have been applied here. The non-Woodley resident standard rate, so that rate from which the others are calculated, has been increased by here by 8.9%. This being the RPI figure for September 2023, which we also use for the allotments increases as a guide to where things are going in the year. I think that represents a realistic increase given the increase in the cost of operating facilities and the other services within leisure, not just specifically the halls. Demand remains really high at both halls. They're doing really well. Still very, very popular. Probably more than ever in that sense. A slight anomaly to point out in there, perhaps, is under Garden of Remembrance, the discount principle of 35% for residents has been applied here, but the only way to get to the number was really to raise the non-Woodley rate by a higher amount, by 25%. In reality, I don't think we've ever had a non-Woodley person acquiring a flat, but it does at least give us a price and that consistency in terms of the discounted rate. Just down at the bottom of the page there is something that actually hasn't come to leisure services before in terms of the amount. It was something that had happened previously, where we have a facility for people to have a memorial bench, and they make a donation to the council rather than it being a charge, because they don't own the seat. So they're not buying a seat, they're just buying essentially the right to put a plaque on one that we then purchase and maintain and retain ownership of. Historically, that amount, which was at 625, had been the same for a period of time. The costs of the seats to the council have gone up a lot. And in this year, it's £980 for a seat delivered. So the proposal here is to increase that donation amount to meet that amount. In reality, there are other costs to that. We've got a concrete base down. We've got bolts. We do a lot of maintenance on them, but there is a benefit to the council of having those additional seats in that way for our seating stock. So that's why that, excuse me, that's why that number is a significant increase on what it was previously. That said, in terms of context as well, we were actually, when we started offering memorial seats, we had a lot of old stock that was in really bad shape. It was a really good thing for us and a good way of us increasing our and improving our seating stock. We're not in that position at the moment. It's almost gone a little bit the other way, where we might be looking for locations for seats that we might not otherwise have considered. So there's not quite the need for lots more seats in the park, but we do try and accommodate them, and not just in Woodford Park. We do look at other locations.
There's something dotted around elsewhere as well.
Yeah, and what we have been doing is because we now offer a memorial tree, which you'll see on there as well. That's done on the basis of the price of an individual specimen tree. So we talk to the individual about the type of tree that we might like, and we've got a location for, and they'll have some ideas as well. Talk to them about that. We buy the tree, put it in, they make a donation on the basis of the cost of the tree, and also a fee of £60, which is for a standard tree guard, some irrigation pipe, and getting it planted, basically. What we have found is that quite a lot of people are quite keen on the tree.
Yeah.
There's no room for a seat, and that's another option we can give them. And we have got a number of locations where we can put other trees in the park, so we've perhaps kind of steering it that way a bit. And we've put out a bit more advertising about that offer more recently to pick that up a bit. Sorry, that's going off the charges, but just for information.
Very much. Any questions, councillors?
Just quick.
Kessler, you know.
Just with regard to memorial trees and benches, is there a map, you can actually say, well, I have a tree here, and my dog passed away there, something, or is it just a blanket? Do we want to put it?
No, there'd be a discussion with the amenities manager about where might be a good location. Some people have an area where they might have in mind that's special to them, or they just like. And if it's suitable, we'll try to accommodate that. If we've got an area that we're trying to, would like more planting, we have a conversation about it, and we can generally come to agreement on it.
Carol.
Yes, several things. Top of page 5, brownies and dyes. They've gone up by 8.9%, but I see them as some kind of charity concession. So I wondered why that wasn't that 35% discount in the standard rate, or is it, and I've not worked it out in terms of...
Yeah, it's actually a bigger discount than that. They've got very low rates.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's fine. The other one was it was the way in which this is represented. I understand now you've said about that 35%.
Yeah.
In the past, we've had the percentage increases against each line, which has been easy for comparison. So in other words, just taking Coronation Hall, Woodley residents, at 35% discount from the standard rate. What does that equate to in terms of an increase on previous year?
Well, the monetary value is at £2.50 there.
Percentage.
But I haven't got the percentage increase for that.
You see what I mean? It would be
Yeah.
helpful to have the percentage increase so we could have a comparison and maybe have an extra column with the 35% of it, the
Yeah.
8%. I found it difficult to do.
Just under 10%, isn't it?
Yeah.
to do a comparison.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions, councillors? Okay. Could I have a show of hands for all those that would approve those increases?
everyone, 10.
None against, one abstention. Thank you very much, councillors. We'll take item 9 on the agenda, which is to consider the revised estimates. I'll take Kevin.
Thank you. So the revised estimates for 2023-24 are set out in the same budget appendix. These have been considered by the appropriate service manager or a budget holder, and are affected by a number of things in the year. So, for example, as I mentioned, the national pay award for staff, changes to cost of materials and services. Overall income is expected to be 219,221 higher than in the original budget. Part of that is due to the VAT rebate, which we mentioned a couple of times, which is a little over 133,000, and which has been placed into an earmarked reserve specifically for the Park Leisure Centre. Expenditure in the year is expected to be around 17,605 over the original budget, leaving a net expenditure of 201,616. So although those numbers are a little skewed by the income from the VAT, which has gone into an earmarked reserve, overall that picture's pretty good. And if you compare the revised estimate there with perhaps the actual in the year before, gives you an idea of where those numbers are without the sorry, that's it for the revised estimates. Any other questions?
So, got any questions on the revised estimates for budgets? Michael.
Yeah, I'm going to take a few with Clark on this one. The earmarked reserve for VAT shown in income. Now we know that as we work out the refunds, there's going to be corresponding expenditure. So rather than try and reflect that in this income and expenditure account, wouldn't it be better not to include that figure in the income for Woodford Park for 2023-2024? Because it's rather skewed.
Yeah, it has. To be honest, we framed it differently in the budget pages that will go to strategy and resources. It comes in somewhere separately and goes straight into the earmarked reserve.
Yeah.
We did have that conversation, and yes, you're probably right. Entirely up. Yeah.
Any other questions, councillors? Okay, then I can take item 9. All those in favour of the revised budgets under item 9, please show their hands. Those against? Those abstaining? No. Excellent, thank you.
We record a vote of thanks to the clerk and his officers for producing an excellent set of figures.
Yes, I would absolutely do that because I thought they were great this time. So yes, they are good, yes. That's on our face.
So next item is
Item 10, budget estimates for 24-25. Kevin.
Thank you. So again, these have been considered individually by cost code in the context of expected income and expenditure changes. Excuse me, income is expected to be around 587,000 in next year, and with expenditure at 821,876, with a net expenditure of about 233,676 across the whole of leisure services. So there are a few things in next year which are affecting it. Staff costs has been one. It actually hits the strategy and resources budget more so in terms of superannuation costs and things like that. But there is a bit of a hit on that, and just supplies in general. So costs have gone up and are going up in next year. And I think what we've got there with a balance with those charges and what we're looking at for next year, that's about right. As I said, rather than just apply a percentage increase across all of them, we do each cost code with the manager, and whether that's
All the best.
whether that needs to go up, down, to stay the same, or whatever.
Any questions on the item 10? that case, can I have a show of hands to approve that estimate? Thank you.
Everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you very much. Again, thank you, Kevin. Team, right. I will now take item 11, which is the use of the service title be approved. And to notes. Okay, is there. Kay, is there anything you wish to add to that report?
No, that's, we've worked very hard and we've done quite a lot of work on this, as you can read the report. I think we've worked very well at it, and hopefully we can continue doing that because we are actually making some.
You're building some quite good momentum, aren't you, by those things? There's been a lot of discussion, so
Yes.
that's good.
Yes.
Quite a few decisions have been made. There's still some actions to be done
Oh,
sort of
yeah.
on the list, but it's all heading in the right direction, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay, does anyone have any comments? Michael?
Yeah, just one comment. I kind of chaired the meeting on the 20th of December. That's
Sorry about that.
No preparation. It was,
Well, we'll thank you for that.
Sorry, I was
you know,
ill.
you kind of bring it, I think, but if you're perfectly honest, but I didn't find it useful for the police, although they were a bit bashful in showing their faces. They had their camera and you couldn't see them. So they, at least I like to look at people when they speak, but they were really good in the comments. But youth facility went where it should be. They're kind of sitting on the fence at the moment, so they want to make an informed decision on that as well. And also with regard to our and Berkshire Youth, it was kind of, we really want to get a form, get all the information in before any kind of decisions even vaguely considered. So they'll work a good shot at it, really.
Okay,
It is an important decision.
It is an important decision. Did we request a formal proposal from them now? Is that what, is that where it's gone to
Yes.
now? Okay. Yeah. When did that go out? A few weeks ago, was it? Or was it before
It went
Christmas?
out just
Just before Christmas.
Okay, what's the deadline for that?
We have had a response. ARC have called out and said they're no longer able to provide that. Berkshire Youth are yet to respond. I've chased them again today, so I've chased them a couple of times in the new year. They do tend to be very busy, and so their responses can be a little bit slow, but I have chased them again. And in terms of, I suppose, the next steps for the working group, really that kind of awaiting that response is key to. As soon as that comes in, I can arrange another meeting of the committee to make, to make some.
Did ARC give a reason why they suddenly drew?
I think they basically said that having reviewed it now based on their staff resource, they wouldn't have the.
They wouldn't have the
capacity to
resource
do it.
capacity to do it. That's what they asked. At least they're honest about
At least we know, yeah.
that. At least we know, yeah, exactly. Okay. Good. Any other comments from any other councillors? Esther?
Just one, maybe it's not related, but we did speak about Legal Park and having that budget looked at. Is that still looked at being bought by the council?
Yes, so
Does that come up a bit later on, Kevin?
no, actually, it was in the action plan, action.
Is that okay? Yeah,
Start of the meeting.
You could,
I can just.
if you can give us an update now.
Yeah, that's fine.
Thank you.
Reading Borough Council has said no to the request, the written request for transfer of ownership. And I do have a report going to Strategy and Resources next week to see if Strategy and Resources would be prepared to put funding towards replacing play equipment at the site. So there's been a desire to do that, discussion to do that from this committee. And that would need a recommendation to Strategy and Resources. So the report going there initially, so that there's agreement in principle to do that, and then we can look at the way forward.
Yeah. I've got a funny feeling, Kester, a lot of that land, what I call casual land, it would be, especially northward, is sort of, it's owned by Reading Borough Council.
Yeah.
Because I see a lot of, my brother lives around that way, and I so often visit up there, and there's a lot of signs and, you know, all from Reading. Not that I guess they can maintain. But so I think that's just a normal thing, actually, but I'm glad we asked, Steve.
It needs some love.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. Any other questions? No? Okay, in that case, well, no. Oh, yes, hang on a second, yes.
Just to explain, so under item 11B, the working group asked that leisure services formally note the targeted completion date for their actions. I know obviously over the years there's been quite a lot of eagerness and pressure to try and make some actions occur. Obviously the working group felt that that was a reasonable timeframe for them to get all the information they need to make a reasonable decision. So they want it formally noted by this committee and Strategy and Resources next week,
Alright,
so that all councillors involved are aware of those timescales.
good. Okay, so to note those reports, but especially to note the deadline of the 19th of November,
Mhm.
in B1.
Yeah.
Sorry, in terms of reference, it's a thing.
To vote.
It's a vote on that.
Yes, so an item 11C is to change the terms of reference to add in, so.
Why do you put that in there to vote? Normally you say it there.
Yes, it should be to consider. Well, I think the reason I've worded it in such a way is, whilst the committee needs to consider adding that date, the standing orders require that date, so there is no option not to add a date. What that date is up to you for decision, and hopefully that information from before will give that. But the committee, under the standing orders, we've had a few working groups set up over the last 6 months that have not had an end date stipulated, which they should.
All right.
So that's why they've been brought here, so that that can be added.
Okay, well, that's fine. In that case, then, the proposal is that we accept the due date 19th of November for those actions for this task and finish group. Can I show of hands, please, in favour of that?
That's everybody, thank you.
Thank you. No abstentions and no, thank you very much. Okay, now I shall go on to item 12, which is the Woodford Park Legislative Development Task and Finish Working Group. And to note the appointments for chair, which is one, me. So thank you for councillor to that, also to Councillor Charles Bay, who is also our appointed Labour group representative, so welcome to him. And to note the reports in items B and terms of reference C. But a couple of things that actually I think we need to vote on. Can we take these all together, or if everyone's happy with this, what I'd like to do is there are a couple of recommendations in here that I'd like to take all at once, if that is if that's everyone's happy with that. If not, please stick your hand up. But the first one is to amend the working group terms of reference to clarify the term to members of the council. We just felt that was a little bit woolly. Members of what, you know, which committee? Just gets a bit woolly, so we decided to amend those. We would also like to consider approving the procurement of a condition survey for the Woodford Park Leisure Centre. So that's the second thing. And we'd also like to recommend a end date for the working party, which will be the day after the last meeting. Do we have a date for that?
There was nothing suggested, so it's up to this committee, I guess, to ascertain when they feel that it's reasonable for that. Obviously, with this particular working group, the project itself, following the working group decisions, may take a number of years. If it's a case of redevelopment, there might be more. But in terms of actually coming to a decision as to what to do with the leisure centre, the committee should hopefully be able to come to an expectation of maybe that could be completed by the meeting in June or September.
I would say September.
Yep.
So when is the
So I think it might be the 31st of August. Let me have a quick check. So you ideally set the day. It's the 3rd of September. So if you set the 4th of September, that would mean you could review it on the 3rd of September and extend if needed.
Okay, so that will be the 4th of September then. So those are the three recommendations I'd like to make. Can I show of hands to approve, please? Everyone. Thank you. No extensions. Thank you very much, everyone. Good. Okay, let's go on to item 13 now, which is our youth grant applications. And to review and consider those applications that we have received, and it's the last day of services. So you'll have all had details of the 5 applications that we received, and I hope as many of you as possible managed to get your scores in the best you could. Thank you, Yvonne, for your questions.
Yeah.
I know.
I'm afraid I messed up because I thought that they were automatically saved, and like a SharePoint or something, and I didn't save them, so they all disappeared. I've just scored mine now, though, if that's any That's a
Do
year.
we have a summary that you can give us at the moment in terms of what scoring came out?
Yes,
Yeah.
well, obviously I put on the desks the scoring that people had provided by mid of the afternoon. I tried to highlight, so just to explain the matrix again, obviously this reflects the guidelines specifically and lists actually the points approved in the guidelines for awarding grants. The first question about the project activities, assist and facilitate projects that basically engage young people is the requirement of those guidelines. The next questions, which are the ones that are scored, are the ones that the guidelines say we should prioritise or give preference to. Therefore, the scoring would give an indication to the members as to whether it would be a higher or lower priority to award to.
Yeah.
And the last three questions are the guidelines say if they could be reasonably funded from other sources, or funded from subscriptions, or they promote a political viewpoint, we would not normally award grants. So again, they could be answering yes in that, but you might want to award it. But the point is to highlight those to show you where in the guidelines they are. So yeah, this is the highlight there. Everyone had a copy on their desk. Just to explain one thing before we carry on. As I said in the email, 4 of these applications originally came in as annual grant applications. At last week's Planning and Community Committee meeting, a proposal was made regarding the sum of money that the Planning and Community Committee could budget to annual grants. £58,000 was requested from applicants, and the committee agreed they could only fund 30,000. And of those 10 applications they received, 4 of them had some benefits to young people, and those they asked that they be directed to this committee for consideration under the earmarked reserve that was there for youth projects and youth grants. So that is why they've been directed here. The Planning and Community Committee wished also to express that they fully endorsed those applications to be approved by this committee. That endorsement is obviously it's not binding on this committee. It's up to this committee to consider these applications, but it's worthwhile noting that were fully in support of them being approved if that was the decision this committee made.
So what I'm hearing is that because of that, we've got some flexibility then in terms of whether we can approve the full amounts that we've got here, basically. So I'd like to invite some. Can we go through the scoring first? Would that be helpful before I invite councillors' comments? Is that worth doing, or?
You might want to take them one by one as applications and look at the streets as they are.
That's probably not a bad idea. That's a bit similar to that before. Yes, Danny.
Thank you, Chair. Just wanted to correct the Arc Youth Counselling. I think I did not intend to put score 1 for make significant impact on the gross income, supposed to be 0. So I think I'd like to.
Okay, so that's a bit go on that.
Thank you.
Yvonne, was there any scores that you wanted to quickly? I mean, get up, show. Is there any score that you want to give particularly?
I've actually scored each organisation 5.
Okay. All right, we'll make a note of that. We'll make of that. We'll make a score. We'll make a note of that in the scoring matrix. Thank you for that. Okay, so that's take the first one on the list then, which is the promise inclusion. You requested £200,000.
So we have scores of 5, 4, 4, 3, and 2 in terms of those sort of priority-based questions. All 5, I think, well, the 4 that I received all indicated that it did meet the main principle of the guidelines. But Councillor Smith, you also said that you felt it would be reasonably expected to be funded from other sources.
Yes. Any other questions on that? I know, Kay, did you want to have, you've been playing again.
Right. Well, this is the first one, obviously, promising interest.
We always included
Inclusion.
first. Sorry. It's only because that's the sheet on my.
What are we talking about? We're talking about art.
You're going for
It's on the matrix sheet that I put on everyone's desk, which was a place of the information. It's the first one on there. Sorry, that's why I went through that.
Right, so we have the summary on art, sorry, which is the second one on the list. We're asking for 5,000. Does anyone have any comments regarding their application?
Well, I would
Yes,
say that ARC is a really good organisation that deals with the youth, which is the youth part of this that we wanted to give money for. So I would be quite happy with ARC because that gives what I feel is the way we were looking at it from 5 years plus to 21, which is what we need.
That's what we need, yeah.
Mm.
Any other comments from people? Okay, shall I approve for each one?
I think we have to have a vote on each one.
Yeah. Okay, then, councillors, can I ask all those in favour of a donation of £5,000 to ARC Youth, please raise their hands.
All 10.
Fantastic.
So the next one is just the First Aid Children's Charity, that are requesting a grant of £5,100. Again, all the councillors responded, were quite happy that it met the main principle of the grant. We had scores of 5, 2, 6, 3 and 2. Councillor Smith, I didn't get your responses from the bottom section, but I've had no other concerns raised.
Councillors, any questions or comments on the grant for First Aid Charity?
The ages in this one, 8 to 13 and 14 to 19, that's only 1/6 of the amount of people coming from Woodley in that age group. That's quite low, I think.
We're talking about 15% on that, something like that.
Yes. Mm.
So my suggestion here is if there is any particular concern regarding the number of people that are being serviced by these requests, we take a percentage approach. So for example, if they're only serving, say, 15% of residents of Woodley, then we provide 15% of the grant that's been requested. And I sort of suggest that, but I'm welcome to any other comments. Michael, Robert, sorry, you raised your hand.
No, thanks. Yes, fully understand what you just said,
Yeah.
but if I was doing a charity knowing that we had 15% of Woodley covered and I wanted £15,000 and you're going to cut it down, I'd ask for £100,000. So you can then cut it down to 15,000.
Then I'd say no bubble.
And we would have to apply that rationale to every single charity, which we didn't do to ARC.
Okay.
So I think that would be a difficult bellwether to work towards.
All right. Thank you.
Yes, I'm going to temper what I'm about to say with a sort of half declaration of interest, because as a Lion, member of Woodley Lady Lions Club, I'm very familiar with First Aids and what they do, and I think they do a fantastic job of providing school clothing and toys for underprivileged children. And so I think my scoring for all of the grants was quite harsh. I noticed yours was 2, Darren, and
Yeah.
I think I had this conversation with the deputy clerk this afternoon, and I wonder whether this committee is the right committee to be considering these grants, because it's a matter for planning and community. And if planning and community haven't got enough in their budget, then rather than via from our budget, shouldn't we be taking more money into their budget so that they haven't got to refer applications to this committee? Because don't forget, this committee and the youth grants were specifically for new projects, the projects that were going to benefit young people going forward. And if you look at all these 5 applications, they're really just grants to keep them going. They're just revenue related expenditure.
They're not project related.
They're not project.
They're running costs and
They're just
training.
running costs. And if you look at their balance sheets, they've all got 130, 140,000 pounds sloshing around. That's not to say that they're not deserving of grants, I just wondered whether, whether we've got this right. If the concept is to make sure that the £30,000 that was allocated for youth grants is spent in this year, then fine, I haven't got a problem with that. I just wonder whether the money should have gone across to the Planning and Community Services Committee to make those decisions. That's all.
Problem.
Sorry, I'm aware Carol's had
Oh,
a hand.
Carol's had a hand,
for a while.
yeah.
But can I just,
Carol.
can I suggest, I don't know, we just pause what we're doing at the moment and actually have a little 10-minute discussion about this, because it's quite an important point that Mike's mentioned. And I just wondered whether we should, as a committee, just have a little side discussion about this, because we've agreed to do some money already for art. Are we now going to agree to do some money for this? Are we really happy with this? I personally don't like the scoring matrix, because you can make any answer the same. You can do anything with this.
The scoring matrix.
But I just wonder if we should just pause what we're doing and just have a little
Well,
chat.
let's pause then and have that discussion. Carol.
Thank you. I agree with what Rob said about the percentage idea that you came up with. I think that probably isn't the way forward. But these are called youth grant applications. They're not called youth project applications. And I don't know whether this is the point. We shouldn't be referring us back to planning community if this is going to actually delay these applications. And it's actually something that was decided by, let's say, full council, that youth grants come under leisure services. I've never seen the point of that, but then we haven't got a special committee. I think we should look at these with the information we have and the work that's been done already, and then maybe put it to the full council about where the youth grants or youth project, make that definition and start there.
Yeah.
With the full council.
Yeah, I'm happy with that, yeah.
No.
Well, this money was actually allocated for youth projects, not for organisations that are wanting extra money. I mean, they've got £85,000, this particular one, in reserves. That's an awful lot of money. And it seems that they're just putting out their feelers to everybody to get extra cash in. I don't think there was enough people from benefiting from Woodley, because that's what these grants were for Woodley. Young people to try and improve their situation.
But in answer to that, 15% is what has happened. We don't know what they will do in the following year, and without the grant, maybe they won't be able to extend it to the residents. So I think that argument is yes.
Can I also point out, there's a paragraph here in the document where it says there are 7,899 children living in Woodley Town Council area. Of those children, 1,692 are living below the poverty line, according to data from the DWP. At first days, we supported 1,252 of those children. So that's a high percentage of children who are living below the poverty line in Woodley that they have supported.
Yeah, I did see that actually. I thought that was quite high actually. They probably didn't express it very well in their application, but
No.
when you look at that detail, you realise that
But they're reaching the majority.
The majority of those kids, wouldn't they?
Thanks, Darren. So, Kay, what you just said about the reserves for, there's so many bits of paper here, it's quizzing between them all. So you said the reserves for 90,000?
84,983 pounds.
Mr. Chairman, we shouldn't actually be discussing those figures because they are in the confidential.
You're actually right.
They're available, Chairman, on the.
Oh, no, you're right. They are available, aren't they?
Yeah.
They're in the public domain, yes, they are.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, but we've just given that money to, agreed to give that money to ARC, and they've got 112,000 in reserve. So I suggest we go with what Carol said, and that we agree these individually for their merits, or not, the case may be, because we're coming up to the end of the financial year, and we could then put it back to full council, as Carol said, to discuss how we're going to head it, whether it's a project or grants or ongoing, because there's obviously a general uneasiness, uncertainty about how we go forward, and there is a desire that we spend the youth budget and don't just let it
I
fall
think
by the
that is
wayside.
I think that is the desire, that we spend the money in this financial year we have.
But not for spending's sake.
Well, that's the thing.
And this is what makes a big the recommendation strongly from planning communities is that we consider these flexibly under the terms that we've already got for the pot money we've got for youth projects or for youth. So
Just to clarify on the budget, obviously, yes, it is in an earmark reserve, so it will roll over, it won't get lost if it isn't spent in this year. But also that that was the agreement for this year's budget. So once that money is spent, there's nothing to suggest that this youth grant pot will come again, will be taken out of next year's budget or anything. That decision will have to come in next year if the budget that's designed isn't looking like it's been spent on the project that the SLA that you as a committee are looking to do. If that isn't spent on it, then another decision needs to be made about that pot, where that will go. But at the moment, this is the amount of money, and there is no decision on it yet. Once it's
I was paying attention, once we promised.
yeah.
Thank you.
So, summarise, if I get this wrong, you have to correct me. To summarise then, I'm suggesting then that we approve all of these grants based on some flexibility within our criteria. So the criteria that we measure against is indicative. But then we do have to make a referral back to the board as regards to the appropriateness of whether we are providing money for general grants to or for just youth projects. I think that's the reference we have to go back to full council with that, with some guidance to make sure that we don't get into a situation because we feel uncomfortable that actually this money was meant for projects, it wasn't meant for grant applications, which is what's come to us. For at least 3 of them anyway, out of the 5 that we've got. Is it 3 out of 5? 4 out of 5 here. What was the one that just came in?
Promise Inclusion came in just before the last meeting, so just after the agenda had been issued. The other 4 were all annual grant applications for this year.
Yeah.
And obviously, just to highlight that the grant guidelines were recommended by this committee and approved by Strategy Resources, so they've not gone to full council at any point through Strategy Resources that approve those grant guidelines, which, as we state in there, say assist and facilitate projects that reach.
Yeah. That's my take on what we're feeling at the moment. So if I was to propose that we accept these numbers here and we approve these grants, but we do have to get clarity from full council as to the nature of our criteria in terms of projects or general grants.
Do we though? Matthew just said that
my opinion is that it probably needs to be checked with Strategy Resources as the budget holder for grants, but can I just check that with?
Yeah, I think that's
So it would go back, so it would go to Strategy Resources. Okay. So Strategy Resources rather than full council. Okay, fine. If that's the basis then.
But it's a lot of money going out of our budget for youth, isn't it? And we don't know if it's going to carry on next year's budget, so.
What I would say is we have obviously quite as much as we can extensively publicised this pot of money. We wrote to every single organisation that we have had regular contact with and contact with over the last few years that work with youth, explaining that this pot of money was available and what it was available for, and encouraging people to apply. And we've obviously up till this day only had those 3 applicants for that specific pot of money, the 2 that were approved at the last meeting, and then Promise Inclusion.
So 2 months from now, be the end of the financial year, we'll be into a new financial year. Has a budget already been?
Yeah, we know. Can I just add something briefly, exactly on that point? In these budget papers, there is £30,000 plus £5,000 for youth survey if we haven't got it done by then in the budget for next year. We don't know at this point what budget we might be wanting because that group hasn't done that work yet and we're not that far ahead, but that money has gone into the budget as it has done in previous years. into the revenue budget. If we start to get towards the end of financial year, then the council might want to look at what it does with that, as it did last time. It could put that into a grant pot, or it might just go back into the reserve at the end of the year. But it is in the budget for next year. There is a sum.
And just on that point, obviously having agreed a proposed end date for the activities of being November for the working group, it gives you time at that point. If it is, that money isn't going to go towards that project at that point, because it won't be needed in that year, but you will have time then to consider what you want to do with that money in the next financial year.
That makes more sense to me. Probably.
So we can get this on next week's strategy and resources to discuss.
Yes,
And then that discussion will then be minuted and discussed at full council on February the 6th. So then there's accountability for the whole council to see that decision. Which is what we were saying earlier about whole council discussing it, won't we? Yeah. Whole council will have an oversight of it.
Yeah.
I think that covers everything and gives it the gravity that it needs.
Okay, good. Then, I will make a proposal that we consider making the grants as itemised under item B from our youth grant pot. Will you second that? Can I have a show of hands, please?
9-4.
Any against? Any abstentions? Thank you, councillors. Wonderful. I will think so. Item 14, to note the allotments task and finished working group has now achieved its overall focus and has been emphatically disbanded. I'll move on to item 15 then, which is the briefing pitch and operating times. And to note that having done the consultation with local residents, especially in Farriers Close, we did have 2 responses and only one that was negative. So I would like to recommend that we proceed with some planning applications to extend the opening operating hours of the Bridge event from 9 to 9:30 p.m. Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. I think that's been overdue for some time now, but now that we've had operation of that Bridge event for some years, I think everyone feels pretty comfortable with that. We certainly have a lot of people wanting to do that. That's what I would like to propose. Does anyone else have any comments before we take that to a vote? No, in that case, can I have a show of hands? Yeah, for approval.
9-4.
Thank you very much. Okay, can I take item 16, which is the Friends of Woodward Park update on the appendix 16 on page 37. I did read this one as well. Something in here. I think the main comment from this report was really about the footpath that leads across the park from here. Here to across the other side of the park, and it's been a cut through for as long as I've ever been living in Woodley, really, to be honest with you. Was there some work that we were doing to?
Yes, there is a budget in the capital programme to install a grass reinforced path, so matting across that route, and that's in the amenities team's work list, but I don't have that for it yet.
Councillor Carroll.
Yes, it's good to have this report, and I feel strongly that we shouldn't just note these, that we should look at them and pick up items. And the ones I picked up isn't just that one across the memorial ground as opposed to Woodward Park. It is about the paths on the northern side, which are non-existent. And I suppose this kind of goes into number 17. Item 17, I think this should be on the agenda for the next meeting to discuss the paths on the record and actually get something done.
Is it not on your project list?
Yes, we've made some initial costings of it, which were very high, kind of 40,000-50,000 pounds up there. So we're doing a bit more work on that to see what might be possible in terms of something that's not as expensive. And the Amenities Manager's been speaking with Parkrun also to make sure that anything that we might look to do would be suitable for.
I think if it's put on the agenda, then that sort of report can come back to it, and the friends can see that what they're putting back to us is actually getting action.
Yes.
Thank you. Could we, just say, David keeps in regular contact with me, sends me emails when he circulates to, all the other members, and we met up once before Christmas. There's not a huge amount going on at the moment because of the weather. It's either been flooded or frozen or one thing or another, so, they're having a sort of a bit of a fallow time at the moment. The paths we mentioned years ago, being done, and I wonder if we could have, if we should have one of those little project boxes like we have, well, I can't remember what's it called.
Suggestion.
No, then the thing on the meters, we have somebody said path and then actions and follow-ups.
Right, yes.
Yeah, maybe we should have something like that so that, you know, we don't sort of go from one council year to another and think, well, did that get mentioned?
Absolutely, I think that would now be picked up through that anyway, because that's already.
You know, so if we can pick bits off the project list and brings them in, and then we've then got a clear idea of bits, and we can sort of give you a report occasionally, place things up with it.
Yeah, that's the actions of the follow-ups, we can go in there.
Yeah, we could have that, because I mean, the path over there, you know, not just the mud path, isn't it? So, that'd be great.
Let's do that then.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the report, any other comments on the report? Okay. Then we're going to take the next item on the agenda, which is the no future agenda items.
Yes, apart from the one I just mentioned, it struck me looking at the youth grants applications, how many charities there are and groups working for the youth. And that's said that they've been in touch with all these groups to say, you know, there's a grant here if you're interested in it. It seemed to me that having some sort of information hub on youth grants, on charities, children charities, help for families, would be a really useful thing that the town council could do, because I think we've already got that information. And I wonder if that could be on the next agenda, discuss that to see how viable it is, and maybe with a brief report to say whether that's feasible or not.
So I'm just trying to picture that, Carol. Is that something we have on the website, for example, where people would go to figure out who they could approach?
Can I chip in there? I think Wokingham have a similar sort of directory of community groups and things like that.
Okay, is that one?
They do.
So I think we would be very capable of being able to replicate similar on our website. I think we'd be able to also put communications out to get people who would like to be included on that directory to contact us and provide details and set that up. So I'm quite happy to accept that and put that on my list of projects to do. I don't think we need to list it as for another item. It can be added. It will take some time to do. Obviously, it will be updated in the actions and follow-ups. We've got a few other projects, including some stuff with climate emergency, website updates, things that are going on as well. But I can't envisage it not being done this year.
Let's put it on the action list then. Thank you. Okay, then I'll take the final item we do is publicity and website to consider items. Anything else that we would like to think for that? No? Then in that case, I will close the meeting at 9:10. Say,